When my 8-year-old son looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes and said, "Grandma says you're dangerous and that you don't really love us." I felt my heart shatter in a way I never thought possible. This wasn't just a messy divorce anymore. This was a war I never asked for, one where my own children were being turned against me. 12 years of marriage gone in an instant when my wife, Allison, walked out with our kids. But what blindsided me wasn't the divorce. It was realizing her parents were pulling the strings, poisoning Emma and Liam's minds to erase me from their lives. Every visit, I watched my children slip further away until I decided I wasn't going to let them win. They thought they had full control. They thought they could paint me as the villain and take everything I lived for. But at the custody hearing, I revealed something they never saw coming, proof of their manipulation, recorded in their own words. What would you do if your family was being ripped apart by lies? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about revenge. It's about fighting for the people who matter most. And before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories like this. Your support helps us share voices that refuse to be silenced. I used to believe that love and a little patience could fix anything. That's why, even when Allison and I started drifting apart after 12 years of marriage, I held on to hope. We weren't perfect, but who is? We went to counseling, talked about rebuilding trust, and I truly thought we were finding our way back. But one Thursday afternoon, I came home to a half-empty closet and a note on the kitchen counter. "I need space. I'm staying at Mom and Dad's with the kids. We'll talk soon." That was it. 12 years and reduced to a scribbled message. At first, I told myself it was temporary, that Allison just needed time to clear her head. But days turned into weeks, and the only communication I got was through her lawyer. Divorce papers served like a punch to the gut. What hurt more than the divorce itself was waking up to an empty house. No sound of Emma humming while drawing at the kitchen table. No Liam running down the hallway with his toy dinosaurs. The silence was unbearable. When I finally got visitation rights, I was nervous but excited to see my kids. I remember standing at the park, heart racing, watching them step out of Allison's car. But something was off. Emma, my bright, bubbly 10-year-old, barely made eye contact. Liam, usually full of questions and stories, just kicked at the dirt. I knelt down, arms open, but they hesitated. It was like they didn't recognize me. Or worse, like they were afraid. As the visits continued, things got worse. Emma became quieter, distant. Liam started saying things no child should ever say about their father. "Daddy, Grandma says you're too angry to take care of us. Grandpa says you don't really want us around." Each word felt like a dagger. I tried to brush it off at first. Kids repeat things they don't understand, right? But deep down, I knew this wasn't innocent. Someone was feeding them these ideas. I called Allison, desperate for answers. She brushed me off, saying, "The kids are just processing the separation. Maybe they're uncomfortable because of your mood swings." Mood swings? I was a high school history teacher. The most excitement I had was explaining the causes of World War I. But then she dropped the real bomb. "I think it's best if we limit your visitation for now. They don't feel safe." Safe? I had never laid a hand on anyone in my life. I wasn't losing my temper. I was losing my family. That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at old photos of us. Emma on my shoulders at the zoo, Liam's first soccer game, family movie nights where we all fell asleep on the couch. I realized I was being erased, not just from Allison's life, but from my children's hearts and minds. A few days later, a mutual friend reached out. He told me what I had been too blind or too hopeful to see. Allison's parents, Harold and Patricia, had never liked me. I wasn't successful enough for their daughter. A school teacher didn't fit their vision of country club brunches and charity galas. Now they were using the divorce to get rid of me entirely, financing top lawyers and worse, poisoning my children against me. I felt trapped. If I accused them without proof, I'd look paranoid, or worse, unstable. But if I did nothing, I'd lose Emma and Liam forever. That's when I realized, if they were going to play dirty, I had to be smarter. And it started with remembering one small detail: the tablets I bought for my kids last Christmas, devices that traveled with them, right into the lion's den. I stared at those tablets sitting on the shelf, innocent-looking devices covered in stickers of dinosaurs and unicorns. I had bought them as Christmas gifts, thinking they'd help with schoolwork and keep the kids entertained. I never imagined they'd become my lifeline. Colorado is a one-party consent state. As long as one person involved in a conversation knows it's being recorded, it's legal. When Emma and Liam were with me, those tablets were mine to manage. So I installed a recording app. Quiet, hidden, nothing suspicious. At first, I wasn't sure if it would catch anything. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe, just maybe, this was all a misunderstanding fueled by stress. But deep down, I knew better. For days, I waited. Every time the kids returned from Allison's parents' house, I'd sync the devices and listen. Heart pounding, hands shaking. The first few recordings were just normal kid stuff. Silly conversations, TV shows in the background, Liam arguing with Emma over who got the last cookie. And then, I heard them. Patricia's voice, sharp and condescending. Remember, if the judge asks, you tell him Daddy yells a lot. Even when he doesn't, just say he does. It's important, sweetie. Harold chiming in like it was some twisted game. And if you're really good, Grandpa will take you to Disneyland after this is all over. My stomach turned. They were bribing my children, coaching them to lie in court, turning their innocent minds into weapons against me. But it didn't stop there. In another recording, I heard Allison. Her voice was softer, almost apologetic, but the words cut deeper than any knife. I know this is hard, but Mom and Dad are right. This is for the best. One day you'll understand why we had to do this. Daddy's just not the right person to be around anymore. And then, the truth I hadn't been ready to face. Honestly, I never wanted this divorce, but Mom and Dad said I deserved better. Someone more successful. It wasn't about me being a bad husband or father. It was about money, status, pride. I sat there listening to hours of audio, each second confirming my worst fears. This wasn't just manipulation. It was parental alienation. They weren't trying to protect my kids. They were trying to erase me, replacing love and memories with fear and lies. I wanted to confront them right then. Drive to Harold and Patricia's mansion, pound on their polished oak door, and demand they stop. But I knew that's exactly what they wanted, for me to lose control, to give them ammunition. So I swallowed my anger and focused on what mattered, building a case they couldn't ignore. I compiled every recording, organized by date and time. I gathered documents, emails from teachers praising my involvement, doctor appointment records showing I never missed one, photos, receipts from school events, coaching Liam's Little League games, everything that proved I was there, always. Meanwhile, Allison's lawyer kept pushing the narrative that I was unstable, uninvolved, a father unfit for custody. Each letter, each accusation fueled my resolve. They thought they were winning, but they didn't know I had their voices, clear as day, exposing their lies. The night before the custody hearing, I barely slept. I watched my kids' baby videos, reminding myself why I was fighting. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about saving Emma and Liam from a lifetime of manipulation, from growing up believing their father abandoned them. As I walked into that courtroom the next morning, I wasn't the broken man they expected. I was ready, calm, prepared, and holding the truth in my hands. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just the temperature, but the atmosphere. Allison sat across from me, dressed in a sharp navy suit, her expression blank, or maybe rehearsed. Beside her, Harold and Patricia looked smug, like they'd already won. Their lawyer, a man who probably charged more per hour than I made in a week, shuffled his papers confidently. I could feel their eyes on me, judging, underestimating. Just a schoolteacher. Just the soon-to-be-forgotten father. When the hearing began, I listened in silence as Allison's attorney painted a picture of me I barely recognized. Mr. Mercer has demonstrated emotional instability, frequent mood swings, and a clear lack of involvement in his children's lives. He spoke of concerned grandparents and children expressing fear during visits. Every word felt like a brick being stacked around me, building a wall meant to keep me away from Emmy and Liam forever. I glanced at Allison, searching for any sign of doubt, any flicker of guilt, but she just stared ahead, lips pressed tightly together. Harold even had the audacity to nod along, as if the lies were gospel. Then came the moment that nearly broke me. The lawyer submitted a written statement from Emma. I didn't need to read it to know what it said. I could imagine Patricia's voice coaching her. Just write that Daddy yells a lot, that you feel safer with Mommy and Grandma. Hearing the judge read those words aloud, words my daughter had been forced to write, was the deepest cut of all. For a split second, I felt myself unraveling. My heart pounded, my fist clenched under the table. This was beyond unfair. It was cruel. I could have stood up right then, shouted the truth, accused them all of manipulation, but that would have been exactly what they wanted. The unstable father losing control in front of the judge. So I took a breath, a long, steady breath. When my lawyer finally stood, the room shifted. Your Honor, before we proceed further, we have evidence that directly contradicts the narrative presented today. The judge raised an eyebrow, motioning for him to continue. As my lawyer explained the recordings, I saw the color drain from Harold's face. Patricia straightened in her seat, her confidence cracking. Allison's head snapped toward me, eyes wide for the first time since this all began. But the judge wasn't ready to hear the recordings just yet. He wanted context, documentation, so we laid it all out. My attendance records at every parent-teacher conference, doctor visits logged and verified, photos of school plays, soccer games, birthday parties, all moments where I was present, while Allison was notably absent. Yet despite presenting the truth, there was no instant victory. Court isn't like the movies. There's no dramatic gasp followed by a gavel slam. Instead, the judge remained stoic, jotting down notes. Then came his words, calm but heavy. We will review this evidence in full before making any decisions regarding custody. A recess was called. As everyone stood, I caught a glimpse of Allison whispering furiously to her parents. Harold's hands trembled slightly, and Patricia's lips were pursed so tightly they were nearly white. I stepped outside the courtroom, leaning against the wall. That was the moment I realized there was no going back. Even if I won custody, even if the truth came out, the damage to my children had already been done. They'd been used as pawns in a game they never should have been part of. I wasn't just fighting for custody anymore. I was fighting to rebuild the trust that had been stolen from me, to heal wounds my kids didn't even know they had yet. As I stood there staring at the cold marble floors, I knew one thing for certain. I would never let anyone manipulate Emma and Liam again. Not Allison, not Harold and Patricia, not anyone. Whatever the judge decided next, I was ready to face it. Because this wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about being the father my kids deserved, no matter how long it took to remind them who I really was. As the recess dragged on, I sat quietly with my lawyer in a small conference room, reviewing every detail of our strategy. There was no room for mistakes now. We had the truth, but truth alone doesn't always win battles in courtrooms filled with polished lies and expensive suits. We stick to facts, my lawyer reminded me. No emotions, no accusations. Let the recordings speak for themselves. I nodded, gripping the USB drive like it was a lifeline. Because it was. When we were called back in, the tension was suffocating. Allison and her parents avoided eye contact, their lawyer noticeably less confident than before. The judge addressed us with a tone that made it clear. He wasn't interested in drama. He wanted clarity. Mr. Mercer, your counsel has submitted audio evidence alleging coercion and manipulation of the children. We will now review select portions relevant to this case. The clerk set up the playback. I kept my eyes forward, refusing to glance at Allison or her parents. This wasn't about them anymore. The first recording played, Patricia's voice unmistakably clear. Sweetheart, remember what we practiced. Tell the judge that Daddy gets angry a lot, okay? And if you do well, we'll get you that new bike you wanted. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Harold chuckling in the background. Yeah, make sure to look sad when you say it. I heard a faint, hesitant voice, Emma's, responding with a soft, okay, Grandma. It nearly broke me all over again. The judge's expression darkened. He gestured for the next clip. This time, Allison's voice filled the room. I know you don't understand now, but Grandpa and Grandma are helping us. Daddy's just not who you think he is anymore. It's better this way. There was no denying it, no spinning the story. When the recordings ended, the judge removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose, a sign I'd seen teachers make 1,000 times when dealing with blatant dishonesty. I've heard enough for today, he said, his voice heavy. It's clear there has been an orchestrated effort to influence these children against their father. Allison's lawyer scrambled, attempting damage control. Your Honor, these recordings were taken without proper context. But the judge held up his hand, silencing him. Save it for the formal review. My immediate concern is the well-being of Emma and Liam. Then came the words I had been praying for, though they landed with more weight than I expected. Effective immediately, Mr. Mercer will be granted temporary full custody. Mrs. Mercer and her parents are ordered to cease all unsupervised contact until a full psychological evaluation and family counseling are completed. I should have felt victorious, but all I felt was relief and a deep sadness that it ever had to come to this. As the gavel came down, sealing the decision, I looked over at Allison. For the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Not defiance, but regret, or maybe fear. Harold and Patricia, on the other hand, looked like they couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Their plan, their control, shattered by their own arrogance. When court adjourned, I gathered my things slowly, giving them time to leave first. But as fate would have it, we crossed paths in the hallway. I didn't plan on saying anything, but as I saw Patricia's tight-lipped scowl and Harold's reddened face, I knew I had to. I walked up, calm and steady, and looked them both in the eye. I wasn't fighting against Allison, I said quietly. I was fighting for Emma and Liam. Maybe now, you'll understand the difference. They said nothing. Allison lowered her gaze, her parents pulling her away like wounded generals retreating from a lost war. I watched them go, feeling no satisfaction, just a quiet resolve. This wasn't the end. There would be evaluations, counseling sessions, and a long road ahead to repair what they tried to destroy. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I had my children back, not because I outsmarted them, but because I refused to let lies define our family. As I walked out of that courthouse, I knew the real work was just beginning, but I was ready. Because when you fight with truth and love on your side, no amount of manipulation can hold forever. When I pulled up to my house with Emma and Liam in the back seat, it didn't feel real. For months, I'd driven home alone, staring at empty rooms, haunted by silence. Now I could hear Liam humming softly and Emma tapping her fingers on the window like she used to when she was lost in thought. But I knew better than to think everything would magically go back to normal. The court order gave me custody, but it couldn't erase the confusion, the fear, or the lies my children had been fed. As we stepped inside, I watched them look around like they were visitors in a stranger's home. Liam clutched his backpack tightly, and Emma's eyes darted to familiar places. The couch where we used to watch movies, the kitchen where we baked cookies. "Do you guys want to watch that dinosaur movie tonight?" I asked, keeping my voice light. They exchanged a glance, unsure. It was in that moment I realized. The battle in court was over, but the war for their trust had just begun. Over the next few days, I didn't push. I didn't try to explain or defend myself. I just showed up. Every morning, I made their favorite breakfast. Pancakes shaped like dinosaurs for Liam, strawberries on the side for Emma. We walked to the park, played board games, did homework together. Slowly, the walls started to crack. One night, as I tucked Liam into bed, he whispered, "Daddy, Grandma said you didn't want us anymore. But you do, right?" I felt my throat tighten, but I smiled and brushed his hair back. "I will always want you, buddy, no matter what anyone says." A few days later, Emma left a drawing on my desk. A picture of the three of us holding hands under a bright sun. It wasn't much, but to me it was everything. A sign that piece by piece they were finding their way back to me. Meanwhile, Allison and her parents weren't handling the fallout so gracefully. Word spread quickly in our community. It's hard to hide when a judge publicly reprimands you for manipulating your own children. Harold resigned from his position on the board of a local charity, and Patricia stopped showing up at her weekly social club meetings. As for Allison, she was ordered to attend mandatory counseling sessions. Her lawyer filed motions to reconsider visitation, but the judge wasn't budging without proof of real change. One afternoon, about a month after the hearing, Allison showed up at my door, alone. I hesitated before opening it, unsure of what she wanted. Her eyes were tired, her posture slumped. Not the confident woman who once thought she could control everything. "I'm not here to fight," she said quietly. I wanted to say I'm sorry." I let her speak. She admitted that she'd let her parents dictate too much of her life, that she thought following their plan would make things easier, that she'd get custody, financial support, and their approval all in one move. "I didn't realize how far they were willing to go," she said, tears welling up. "I never wanted to hurt the kid or you." I believed her, at least partially, but forgiveness wasn't something I could offer in that moment, not for me and not for Emma and Liam. "If you really mean that," I told her, "then show it in counseling. Prove to them and to yourself that you can be better." She nodded, wiping her eyes before turning to leave. As the door closed behind her, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a quiet sense of closure. This wasn't the ending anyone would have chosen, but it was the one we had. Weeks turned into months, and life slowly settled into a new rhythm. Emma laughed more. Liam started asking if his friends could come over again. We weren't fully healed, but we were healing. I kept every recording, every document, not out of spite, but as a reminder of how easily trust can be broken when pride and control take precedence over love. And every night, as I watched my kids sleep peacefully in their rooms, I knew I'd done what I had to do. Not for revenge, but to give them a chance at a childhood free from manipulation and fear. The scars would remain, but so would the bond we rebuilt. Stronger, and this time, unshakable. Looking back now, I realize that the hardest battles aren't fought in courtrooms or across lawyers' tables. They're fought in the quiet moments. When you're trying to hold on to who you are while everything around you tries to rewrite that story. I didn't set out to destroy Allison or her parents. I wasn't interested in revenge. All I wanted was to be a father, to protect Emma and Liam from becoming casualties in a war they never asked for. It would have been easy to lose myself in anger, to let bitterness take root and define every interaction moving forward. But standing there in that courtroom, listening to those recordings, I understood something vital. Sometimes strength isn't about fighting back harder. It's about fighting smarter and never losing sight of why you're fighting in the first place. Today, my kids know the truth. Not because I told them, but because I showed them through patience, consistency, and love. I didn't need to badmouth their mother or grandparents. The truth has a way of surfacing when you live it every day. We still have challenges. Trust takes time to rebuild. But every smile, every shared moment is proof that we're moving forward. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that people will try to manipulate narratives to serve their own pride, their own vision of control. But no one has the right to weaponize a child's heart. So if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember this: stay calm, document everything, and let the truth speak louder than emotion. Because at the end of the day, real love doesn't need to shout, it just needs to stand firm. And that's exactly what I did.